Folks, I'm gonna remove these two reels from the rods because I want to show you the rods side by side. But before I do that, let me do a very quick recommendation because in the rest of the video, you're not gonna see the reels on the rods. This here is the DAIWA GEKKABIJIN Air AGS rod, and this is the Shimano Vanford reel. This rod right now is on sale at a lot of places. If after the review you decide to buy this rod, the Shimano Vanford is an absolutely perfect match for this rod. I mean, all of the colors match absolutely perfectly. Not only the red accents, but the type of black on the reel matches the type of black on the rod. They just look absolutely perfect, for each other. And on top of that, the price of each component and the quality of each component kind of matches. My other recommendation is for the Presso, DAIWA Presso Air AGS. So that one is GEKKABIJIN Air AGS. This one is the Presso Air AGS. A lot of people bought it and I got a lot of emails. What reel should I get for the Presso Air AGS? Again, the quality and the price of these two products, it's a really good match. The feel is amazing, the look is amazing. Let's move on with the actual video now, but these are very strong recommendations. If you absolutely don't want to have the DAIWA Presso reel here, you can go with the Shimano Suare XR reel. It's decent, but this is just perfect. This is the exact model that we are reviewing today. 6'8", light power, tubular tip, and then I will admit I don't know what the W stands for. If you know, feel free to write it in the comments below. Lure rating 0.5 to 8 grams. Whenever you see such a big range, you should know that it's inaccurate. I don't care who wrote it, DAIWA or Shimano. If it's good for 0.5 gram, it will not be good for 8 gram. The true range of this rod is right in the middle. I would tell you it's good for lures from 1.5 gram on the low end to 5 gram on the high end. I do agree with the line rating though. 1.5 to 4 pound line is about right, even though they should put here line diameter instead of these, pointless pounds. They should write something like from 0.12 to 0.15 millimeter diameter, and don't give me P and nylon line. Just say line with diameter from 0.12 to 0.15, because this is what is actually important, not the strength of the line. And then this rod, just like the Presso Air AGS, is made in China. Now, your number one question is already, Victor, why did you buy a light power rod if you're an ultralight angler? And the answer is, I didn't. This rod was generously provided to me by Mr. Dave Locks, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, from Michigan. But I was looking at this rod for many months before he unsolicitedly made this generous offer, because I really love my Presso Air AGS, and when I saw the GEKKABIJIN Air AGS, naturally I really wanted to try it too, but I just can't buy them all, folks. Especially these high-end rods, I can buy only so many a year. So if you have a high-end rod that I have not reviewed and you are willing to ship it to me for 2-3 weeks for a review, I will really appreciate it. Okay, the first thing you notice when you compare the two rods is that the GEKKABIJIN Air AGS has an EVA foam butt. No butt whatsoever on the Presso Air AGS. And as far as high-end rod butts go, this is really unimpressive. I don't know why you should be impressed by the butt of a fishing rod, but it's really kind of the simplest EVA foam butt that you can imagine. The other thing that you will notice if you compare these two series of rods all together is that even if you compare the same power and the same size, you will notice that the GEKKABIJIN rods always have fatter blank in the first or the bottom half of the rod. They always have a fatter blank, and that creates a bass fishing rod DNA. Fat blank, you should remember from me, creates bass fishing rod DNA. And this was the original reason why, even though I looked at these rods for a long time, I never really pulled the trigger. Even though I have 4 Presso Air AGS rods, just because this blank was too fat and too scary. The other thing is, of course, the colors. This is piano black, and this is just natural carbon weave, which is really not even black, it's like very dark gray. I much prefer the look of the Presso Air AGS. The handles are also a little bit different, even though the real seat is exactly the same if you look at it in abstract, but they are different. First of all, the Presso Air AGS handle is just longer. Even if you superimpose them correctly, it's just longer. Both on top is a little bit longer, and on the bottom is also a little bit longer. And if you are a European with large hands, without a doubt, the Presso Air AGS has the more comfortable handle. Now, the guys with the smaller hands will find them probably exactly the same. But for me personally, I really find this piece here missing. This piece from here to here is missing on this rod. And when I grab it, my palm rests on the blank. And I just much prefer this grip. Even this little piece here, it's not even, it's extending like this, but my thumb rests more comfortably here than over here. And look again, the GEKKABIJIN comes with this piano black color, which is the reason it looks good with the Vanquish. And the Presso Air AGS comes with this almost like very sophisticated gunmetal color. I've told you many times, I love gunmetal color. It looks so sophisticated. But that's the reason why it doesn't look good with the Vanquish, because the Vanquish comes with piano black, shiny, and just doesn't look good on this rod. And then beautiful copper accents. And here the accents are really not the same. But okay, that about the real seat. Okay, moving forward, of course, neither rod has a hook keeper, because God forbid we add 1 gram to the rod with a hook keeper. I don't even think these hook keepers weigh a whole gram. They're probably half a gram, but nevertheless, no self-respecting rod manufacturer dares add a hook keeper to their rod. But look again, the diameter of these 2 blanks. The diameter of the GEKKABIJIN, now these 2 are different models, but no matter how you compare models, you will always see the diameter of the GEKKABIJIN rods fatter than the diameter of the Presso Air AGS rods. But you know, if we get up to here, like this is the portion with the specifications, all of the cosmetic differences between the 2 rods are from here to the end of the handle. That's it. From here on forward, the next 6 feet of or 5 feet of both rods look exactly the same, and they are made of the same components. Look at the 2 blanks going forward. They look, I mean, there is some shade, but you can see they look exactly the same, don't they? They look the same through my iPhone, and they look the same to my eyes also. The first guides are also exactly the same. I really love these guides. They're not that pretty, but this carbon frame gives them such rigidity that it's just really awesome for sensitivity, and they're so light. These guides are just absolutely amazing for ultralight fishing rods. Now, look at the connection of the Presso Air AGS. This rod is so thin. I love thin blanks. Thin blanks are just, even if you don't care for the properties of the action that they give, there is something so elegant about thin blanks. It's really attractive to me. Super thin connection. Now look at how it connects. It's DAIWA's proprietary V-joint or whatever. I don't really pay attention to these marketing descriptions. This is a very flexible connection, and the rod bends absolutely parabolically, just absolutely perfect connection. But okay, look how we connect, okay? This is how we connect. Now let's connect the GEKKABIJIN. Ah, this looks different. Do you even see the difference? The front piece goes inside the first piece. But it was opposite with the Presso Air AGS and every other rod that I own. This is the first rod that I own where the top goes inside the first half. And then it's not even cut here, and it doesn't have the carbon piece like over here. Look how this piece is cut and prepared to be inserted in the other half. There is nothing like this here. This is just the paint. Like there is no special surface treatment to prepare the tip for going inside the first half. Now, I kind of don't like this, to tell you the truth, for two reasons. The first reason is if you remove this in and out a lot, I don't know, maybe the clear coat or the paint will wear out. Maybe it's very durable, but if I have one of these two rods and if you can transport them, like if you have a boat, I would just transport it assembled as I do with all of my two-piece rods. These rods are disassembled only for the rod review and never again. They're always transported as one piece just to avoid wear of the connection. But I think as far as the first piece going inside the bottom half, they had no choice, did they? Because I told you the first half of all of these GEKKABIJIN rods is so fat that if you want the top half to go on top of the first half, it has to be fatter yet. And it's one thing to have backbone here in the first half because, okay, you don't want it to flex, so you can make the first half fat. But the tip, you cannot have fat because then the rod is not going to flex anywhere and it's going to snap. It's got to flex somewhere, right? So this is the only connection that they were able to do if they want to have the action that they want to have. But I much prefer the connection type and the connection diameters here on the Presso Air AGS. There is one last difference between these two series of rods. These are the two guides, the first guides on the two rods, and we already said they are the same. Okay, now let's look at the second guide of these rods. The second guide of the GEKKABIJIN, excuse me for a second, this here is the second guide of the GEKKABIJIN rod. Okay, and let me show you the second guide of the Presso Air AGS. Look at this. The second guide on the Presso Air AGS is much larger. Not only much larger, but a little bit farther away from the blank. So the coils will travel from the first guide through the second with very little loss of energy. Say this with me. They will travel through the guide of the Presso Air AGS with very little loss of energy. Here we're gonna have a significant loss of energy. But the kicker is, first guide the same, second guide different, and then the guides from here on forward are the same again. This is so puzzling. How can you have the same first guide and all of the other guides, only the second guide different? So once again, I much prefer the second guide of the Presso Air AGS.
Okay, so as you can tell from the video so far as ultralight fishing goes, I much prefer the Presso Air AGS over the GEKKABIJIN Air AGS. The two rods are made of pretty much the same components. The only differences are dimensions and colors, aesthetics. But still, everywhere there is a difference between the two rods. I prefer the Presso Air AGS. The first half of the rod, the blank, is always thinner, which makes it more flexible, which makes playing the fish more enjoyable. Then number two for me is the handle here is a little bit longer both on the front and on the back. If you have XL hands like me, I would much rather hold this all day long than hold that all day long. Number three, this weird guide on the GEKKABIJIN Air AGS, so small and already so close to the blank. I discussed this already. I don't even get it. What is the trade-off there? For me, there is no trade-off. It's just a lose-lose situation. I much prefer the second guide on the Presso Air AGS. And lastly, even in terms of aesthetics, this to me is a more beautiful rod. It's not just the copper accents versus red accents, but it's more like paint here, and here the accents look more metallic, even though I know they're not, but it's all about the looks. The color of the blank is dark gray here, like carbon gray. It's piano black here. As far as aesthetics go, I still much prefer the Presso Air AGS. So as far as ultralight fishing goes, I just can't find a reason to recommend the GEKKABIJIN Air AGS. However, let me give you a few advantages. As much as I prefer the Presso Air AGS, how should I leave it so I can grab it from time to time? As much as I prefer the Presso Air AGS, we have some advantages here. This rod here is 6'8". There is no 6'8" in the Presso Air AGS. I would kill for a 6'8" Presso Air AGS, especially with a sharp tip like this. I haven't said this yet, but this rod has one of the sharpest tips that my hands have ever touched. The only rods that have just as sharp a tip are the Corto prototype, and there was one Abu Garcia Barbatos or Barbatos, something like that. Those rods had pretty much zero wobble, just like this rod, but usually rods with a very sharp tip are not that long. If you make a rod long, it starts to wobble. This rod is 6'8" and it still has zero wobble. Such a sharp tip, absolutely perfect rod for any kind of twitching jigging, bottom contact, anywhere you need sensitivity, absolutely perfect for that. So first thing is it has length and sharpness of the tip that are just not available here. The second thing, I already mentioned, this is light power, and light power is again not available in the Presso Air AGS lineup. There are models that say light power, and there is even one model medium light power, but both of these models are really ultra light power. I have mentioned that in other videos, but if this is the first video you see about the Presso Air AGS lineup, the highest power you can get in that lineup is ultralight. So Presso Air AGS does not come in light power. It's just not available, and it is available here. Now, if I have some true ultralight subscribers, they will say, well, Victor, I don't do no catfish fishing. What the hell do I need a light power rod for? Well, not everything is made for you and me. For those anglers that have done a lot of bass fishing in the past, and they want to do some finesse fishing, maybe finesse fishing for smallmouth in rivers or for white bass, or maybe even finesse fishing for crappie. These people, you know, if you come from bass fishing, you cannot go to Presso Air AGS. Don't even consider it. You are not gonna like it. You're gonna say it's a noodle. You're gonna leave negative feedback. It's gonna be negative experience for everybody. These people that come from bass fishing, the lowest kind of level of finesse they can go to is, I believe, this rod. Because this rod is only like, I don't know, 45 grams, super light, super sensitive. And it still gives them a little bit of, you know, control around the boat, you know, setting the hook. So there is probably the majority of the anglers would probably appreciate this kind of power and this kind of action. So let's not forget that we're not the only anglers shopping for these products. So there are two things that this rod offers that are just not available in the Presso Air AGS lineup, and these are length and power. And there is one more advantage of the GEKKABIJIN series over the Presso series that is pretty important, and that is the discounts. This rod can be found with some serious discounts. Just nobody made a nice review about this rod. And as a result of that, the inventories are kind of high. One of you told me that they bought this rod 40% off. Now, if you discount this rod 40% off MSRP, now all of a sudden my opinion about this rod becomes very different, because it is a, I don't know, 45, 48 gram rod, incredibly sensitive, incredibly sharp. All of a sudden I'm thinking, what can I use this rod for? Because believe it or not, even I sometimes prefer a little bit more than ultralight power. Let me quickly tell you the one application where ultralight power is not enough for me. That was when I fished for perch in Chicago in the winter in Calumet River, 33 feet down, and you have a little bit of current. You have to use 5-7 gram tungsten to get to the perch quickly. You can't use lead and you can't use light sinker, because it's not like in a lake you just wait another 5 seconds and you get there anyway. No, with the current, you drop it here. If it's too light, by the time it gets to the bottom, it will be over there. So you have to use a pretty heavy tungsten to get there right away. But then once I get there and I try to twitch this 5 or 7 gram tungsten, now when I'm twitching and I'm trying to irk and annoy the perch, now every time I try to hop it off the bottom, the rod tip of my ultralight power rods kind of flexes and it kills the jerkiness and the irritation of the lure. So when I play these 5-7 gram drop shot tungstens off the bottom, I noticed the exact same thing here when I fished last year for white bass on Tennessee River. Again, 30 feet deep, you gotta get down pretty fast or the current will blow it away. And the same thing, you hop, but with ultralight power, hopping doesn't work. Anyway, if this rod is 40% off, maybe I can get one and use it only in the winter for drop shot fishing. And a lot of the bass anglers who want to try, river fishing for smallmouth or just white bass fishing, actually probably bass anglers would enjoy even crappie fishing with this rod. But if you see this rod 40% off, think about the sharpness, think about the extra length you're not going to find here. Think about the applications where you might need light power and you have to consider it. Now, even 40% off, I gotta tell you, if you're considering for ultralight fishing, the ultralight models of this rod versus the ultralight models of the Presso Air AGS, okay, maybe you still get it, but over there it gets fuzzy for me. I just much prefer the Presso Air AGS for ultralight and super ultralight fishing. But not everything is ultralight and super ultralight fishing, and these are exactly the applications where I would strongly consider this rod, especially if I find it 40% off.